Have you ever wondered how an ancient civilization achieved such incredible sophistication? The ancient Egyptian Empire, which spanned over 3,000 years and saw around 170 pharaohs, is a prime example. Did you know that pharaohs were seen as both political and religious leaders, acting as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people? They were responsible for leading their nation and solving everyday problems, all while being revered spiritually. Each pharaoh left a unique mark on history. Some were architectural geniuses, others were military heroes, and some were masterful diplomats. In today's video, we'll explore the lives and legacies of 10 of the most famous ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Number 10. Hatshepsut, 1507 to 1458 BC. Hatshepsut stands out as one of ancient Egypt's most remarkable rulers. Known as foremost of noble ladies, she was the 5th pharaoh of Egypt's 18th dynasty and ruled longer than any other woman in an indigenous Egyptian dynasty. Her father was Thutmose I, and she ascended to power following the reign of her husband and brother Thutmose II. Upon his death, she became co-regent with her stepson Thutmose III, who was still a child. Eventually, Hatshepsut took on the full responsibilities and title of pharaoh, ruling for about 22 years, starting around 1479 BC. Hatshepsut is credited with restoring trade networks that had been disrupted during the Hyksos occupation of Egypt. This restoration brought prosperity and wealth back to the kingdom. While many historians view her foreign policy as largely peaceful, there is evidence of her leading successful military campaigns in Nubia, the Levant, and Syria early in her reign, which further enriched Egypt through tribute and spoils. Hatshepsut was a prolific builder, commissioning numerous construction projects that surpassed those of many earlier pharaohs. Her architect, Sennemut, played a significant role in designing these grand structures. Number 9. Thutmose III, 1458 to 1425 BC. Thutmose III, also known as Thutmose the Great, was a famous pharaoh who ruled ancient Egypt during the 18th dynasty. His reign, which lasted 54 years, is often regarded as a golden age in Egyptian history. Despite ascending to the throne at the tender age of 2, he left an indelible mark on the ancient world through his military prowess, strategic genius, and significant contributions to the expansion and prosperity of Egypt. Born into royalty as the son of Thutmose II and a secondary wife named Iset, Thutmose III inherited the throne while still a child. His stepmother and aunt, Queen Hatshepsut, initially acted as regent and later declared herself pharaoh. During the early years of his reign, Thutmose III's authority was limited, but he gradually asserted his control and eventually became the sole ruler of Egypt after Hatshepsut's death. Thutmose III's reign was characterized by a series of military campaigns that cemented his reputation as one of history's greatest military commanders. During his reign, Thutmose III led at least 17 successful military campaigns, conquering over 350 cities and expanding Egypt's territory from the Euphrates River in the north to Nubia in the south. His military conquests brought wealth and resources to Egypt. One of Thutmose III's most significant military achievements was crossing the Euphrates River, a feat not accomplished by an Egyptian pharaoh since the time of Thutmose I. Aside from war, Thutmose III supported art and building projects across Egypt. The Grand Temple complex at Karnak is a prime example of his architectural achievements. After hearing about Thutmose III's incredible reign and achievements, which aspect of his leadership do you find most fascinating or inspiring? Let us know in the comments below. Number 8. Ramses II, 1303 BC to 1213 BC. Ramses II, known as Ramses the Great, was a famous pharaoh of ancient Egypt who ruled during the New Kingdom period from 1303 BC to 1213 BC. Along with Thutmose III, he is considered one of Egypt's greatest rulers. Ramses II was not only a powerful warrior, but also a skilled diplomat and builder. He led 15 military campaigns and won most of them. One of his most well-known battles was the Battle of Kadesh. He also had many other victories that showed his military strength and strategic skills. As a builder, Ramses II was extremely ambitious. He established the city of Pi-Ramses in the Nile Delta and designated it as Egypt's new capital. This city was important for his military campaigns in Syria, where he regained control over Canaan and Phoenicia. He also led expeditions into Nubia, which are recorded in inscriptions at Beit al-Wali and Ger Hussein. During his long reign, Ramses II celebrated 13 or 14 set festivals, which were events that symbolized his long and successful rule. He built many cities, temples, and monuments, leaving behind an architectural legacy that still amazes people today. Ramses II is believed to have lived to be around 90 or 91 years old. After his death, he was buried in a grand tomb, KV7, in the Valley of the Kings. Later, his mummy was moved to the royal cache, where it was found by archaeologists in 1881. Number 7. Xerxes I, 519 to 465 BC. Xerxes I, also known as Xerxes the Great, was the ruler of the Achaemenid Empire from 486 BC until his assassination in 465 BC. He was the son of Darius the Great and Atossa, who was the daughter of Cyrus the Great. Xerxes is most famous for his invasion of Greece in 480 BC, which ultimately ended in defeat for the Persians. Before that, he inherited a vast empire from his father and solidified his rule by suppressing revolts in places like Egypt and Babylon. In his campaign against Greece, Xerxes led a massive army into Europe, achieving some victories but ultimately facing defeat at the Battle of Salamis. He then retreated to Asia to avoid being trapped by the Greeks. On return to Persia, Xerxes focused on completing various construction projects initiated by his father. When Xerxes became king, he faced trouble in some of his territories. Egypt revolted, so Xerxes led his army to stop it, which also let him start his reign with a military campaign. He put down the revolt in January 484 BC and put his brother Achaemenes in charge of Egypt. This revolt used up the army Darius had gathered over 3 years, so Xerxes had to raise a new army for his Greek expedition, which took 4 more years. There was also trouble in Babylon. It revolted at least twice during Xerxes' reign. The first revolt, led by a rebel named Bel-Shimani, was short and lasted only 2 weeks. 2 years later, another rebel named Shamash-Ereba took over Babylon and nearby cities. The exact cause of these revolts is unclear, but it might have been due to high taxes. Before these revolts, Babylon was treated especially within the Achaemenid Empire, but after, Xerxes stopped calling himself King of Babylon and split the Babylonian area into smaller parts. It's often said that Xerxes took revenge on Babylon after the revolts. Despite these events, some festivals in Babylon continued, though they might have changed under Persian rule. In 465 BC, Xerxes and his heir Darius were assassinated by Artabanus, the commander of the royal bodyguard. Xerxes was succeeded by his third son, who became Artaxerxes I. Number 6. Tutankhamun, 1341 BC to 1323 BC. Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who ruled from about 1332 to 1323 BC, during the late 18th dynasty. Originally named Tutankhaten, he was likely the son of Akhenaten, and DNA testing identified his mother as the younger lady buried in tomb KV35. Tutankhamun became pharaoh at around 9 years old, following the brief reigns of Smenkhkare and Nefertiten. When Tutankhamun became king, he took the throne named Neg-Kheperura and ruled for about 9 years. He married his half-sister Ankhesenpeten, who was probably the mother of his 2 daughters. During his reign, he restored Egypt's traditional polytheistic religion, reversing the religious changes introduced by his father, Akhenaten. He moved the royal court from Akhenaten's capital, Amarna, back to Memphis, and re-established diplomatic and military activities. His death has been much debated, with some suggesting he died from a combination of malaria and a leg fracture. With his tomb incomplete, he was buried in a small adapted tomb. In modern times, Tutankhamun became famous for the discovery of his nearly intact tomb in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter, sponsored by George Herbert. The tomb contained over 5,000 artifacts, including his undisturbed mummy, which sparked worldwide interest in ancient Egypt. Are you curious about our top 3 ancient Egyptian pharaohs? Stay tuned for an eye-opening watch. You won't want to miss what's coming up. And if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit that like button and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest videos. Number 5. Amenhotep III, 1391 BC to 1353 BC. Amenhotep III, also known as Amenhotep the Great, was the 9th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. His reign was one of great prosperity and cultural splendor, with Egypt reaching its peak of artistic and international power. This period is often considered one of ancient Egypt's golden ages. When Amenhotep died, after 38 or 39 years as king, his son, Amenhotep IV, later known as Akhenaten, succeeded him. Amenhotep was likely born around 1401 BC. He claimed that his true father was the god Amun, who had taken the form of Thutmose IV to conceive him with Mutemwia. In the second year of his reign, Amenhotep married Tia, the daughter of Yuya and Thuya. Tia remained his great royal wife throughout his rule. They had two sons, Crown Prince Thutmose and Amenhotep IV, Akhenaten, and several daughters, including Sitamun, Henetaneb, Iset, Nebta, and Beketaten. In addition to Tia, Amenhotep had other wives, including Gilukepa and Tadukepa from Mitanni, as well as daughters of kings from Babylon, Arzawa, and Amir. He also married at least two of his daughters, Sitamun and Iset, which was not unusual for Egyptian royalty. Amenhotep became pharaoh between the ages of 6 and 12. In the 11th year, he had an artificial lake built in Tia's hometown of Jakaru. He celebrated by rowing his royal barge on it. He is known to have killed over 100 lions in the first 10 years of his reign, showcasing his strength and bravery. Despite his prowess in hunting, Amenhotep only engaged in one recorded military campaign, which was a successful rebellion suppression in Kush in his 5th year. This victory was commemorated with rock-carved stelae. Amenhotep's court included notable officials like Viziers Ramosa, Amenhotep, Aparal, and Tamosa, and the Viceroy of Kush, Merimosa. His trusted official Amenhotep, son of Hapu, was allowed to build his mortuary temple and was deified after his death. One of Amenhotep's grandest projects was the Malkata Palace, built mostly of mud brick. It became his residence in the later part of his reign. He also celebrated 3 grand set festivals in his 30th, 34th, and 37th years, each involving elaborate rituals to prove his fitness to rule. Amenhotep maintained strong diplomatic relations, as evidenced by the Amarna letters. These letters detail correspondence with other great powers of the time, including requests for gold and gifts. One letter highlights his refusal to marry his daughters to foreign kings, preserving royal bloodlines and enhancing Egypt's prestige. Number 4. Khufu, 2589 BC to 2566 BC. Khufu, also known as Cheops, was an ancient Egyptian king who ruled during the Old Kingdom period in the 26th century BC. He succeeded his father Sneferu as the second pharaoh of the 4th dynasty. Khufu is best known for commissioning the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. However, many details about his reign remain unclear due to limited documentation. The only well-preserved portrait of Khufu is a small ivory figure discovered in a temple ruin in Abydos in 1903. Most other depictions of him are fragmented, and many of the buildings he constructed have been lost. Information about Khufu primarily comes from inscriptions in his tomb at Giza and later historical accounts, such as the Westcar Papyrus from the 13th dynasty. Most documents mentioning Khufu were written by ancient Egyptian and Greek historians around 300 BC. While Khufu was highly regarded during the Old and New Kingdom periods, later historians like Manetho, Diodorus, and Herodotus portray him negatively, leading to conflicting views of his personality. It's still not certain how long Khufu ruled Egypt, but evidence suggests he was close to celebrating 30 years on the throne. Inscriptions found in various places give us clues about the different years of his reign. For example, a rock carving at the Dakhla Oasis mentions Khufu's 27th year as king, while papyrus fragments called the Diary of Merer talk about transporting building materials for the Great Period in a later year. The most significant date we have from Khufu's reign is related to his funeral. Graffiti near the Great Pyramid suggests it was around his 28th or 29th year as king. Historical records from later periods give different lengths for Khufu's reign. The Royal Canon of Turin says 23 years, while ancient writers like Herodotus and Manetho claim 50 or even 63 years. However, these numbers are likely exaggerated or based on old, unreliable sources. Politically, Khufu was involved in building projects within Egypt and had connections outside the country. He sent expeditions to places like the Sinai Peninsula to find turquoise and copper, and to Byblos to trade for cedarwood. Recent discoveries at Wadi al-Jaf, an ancient port, shed light on Khufu's activities. Papyrus fragments found there show how the government sent food and supplies to workers, providing insights into daily life during Khufu's reign. Monumentally, Khufu is depicted in various statues and artifacts. One famous item is the Khufu statuette, a small ivory figurine showing Khufu seated. Other statues and fragments found at different sites give us more clues about his appearance and activities. Number 3. Akhenaten, 1380 BC to 1334 BC. Akhenaten was an ancient Egyptian king who ruled from about 1358 to 1336 BC. He was the 10th ruler of the 18th dynasty. Before his 5th year as king, he was known as Amenhotep IV. People have described Akhenaten in different ways. Some think he was a mysterious and revolutionary figure, while others think he was crazy. There's a big debate about whether Amenhotep IV became Egypt's ruler right after his father Amenhotep III died, or if they ruled together for some time, maybe even 12 years. Some scholars argue against a long shared rule, saying it was either short or didn't happen at all. Others, like Redford, Murnane, Gardner, and Berman, say there was no shared rule. In 2014, archaeologists found both pharaohs' names in the Luxor tomb of Vizier Amenhotep II. Some think this proves that Akhenaten shared power with his father for about 8 years. But others disagree, saying it just means that Vizier started building his tomb during Amenhotep III's reign and finished it under Akhenaten's rule. When Akhenaten first became king, he probably did so around 1353 or 1351 BC, when he was maybe 10 to 23 years old. He was likely crowned by Thebes, but some think it might have happened in Memphis or Armont. Early in his rule, Akhenaten's artwork didn't change much. The tombs built in the first few years still showed him in the traditional style. He started building new temples for the Aten in many cities and even built a big complex for the Aten at Karnak. Around his 2nd or 3rd year as king, Akhenaten organized a Set festival. These were usually held every few years to celebrate a pharaoh's long rule. Some people used to say this festival shows he ruled with his dad for a while or that he wanted to honor his dad's rule, while others say it was about honoring the Aten, who Akhenaten thought ruled Egypt. Number 2. Djoser, 2686 BC to 2649 BC. Djoser was an ancient Egyptian king who lived a long time ago during a period called the Old Kingdom. He was the first king of his time, and he was also known by different names, like Torsothros and Sesorthos. Djoser's parents were King Kasekemwe and Queen Nimatap, but it's not entirely clear if Djoser directly inherited the throne from them. One big thing Djoser is famous for is building a step pyramid, which is a massive stone structure. It's one of the oldest and biggest buildings made of stone in all of Egypt. Djoser's other names, like Nechereket, are used in writings from ancient times. They mean things like divine of body, which shows how important he was to the people of his time. Some lists of kings say that Djoser's reign followed another king named Nebka, but there's debate among experts about the order of kings. Some think Djoser came before Nebka. Djoser's family connections are quite interesting. His wife was Queen Nimatap, and some inscriptions and seals link her to Djoser's father, Kasekemwe. These seals suggest that Djoser was either Kasekemwe's direct son or that Nimatap had Djoser with someone else before marrying Kasekemwe. This link strengthens the idea that Djoser succeeded Kasekemwe directly. There's also evidence that Djoser's reign was a time of prosperity and growth for Egypt. The country was united into one kingdom, and this period saw the beginning of the 3rd dynasty and the Old Kingdom. Djoser is considered one of the possible founders of this dynasty, along with other kings like Nebka and Saneket. Egyptologists, experts who study ancient Egypt, like Toby Wilkinson, believe that Djoser was indeed Kasekemwe's successor. They found seals and other archaeological evidence that suggests a close connection between Djoser and Kasekemwe. This evidence includes things like inscriptions and objects found in the tombs of both kings. Djoser's reign is also known for his queens, like Hetephanepti and Inetkawis. There were also other royal women during Djoser's time, but not much is known about them. Djoser led military missions into the Sinai Peninsula to control the locals and mine minerals like turquoise and copper. The Sinai was vital as a buffer between Egypt and Asia. Manetho, an ancient historian, credited Djoser with architectural innovations, including using hewn stone and making reforms in writing. Some believe these feats were attributed to Imhotep, Djoser's minister who engineered the step pyramid's construction. Djoser's burial in his step pyramid marked a shift from Abydos to Saqqara as the royal burial site. His vizier Imhotep played a crucial role in building Djoser's pyramid and was honored alongside him in inscriptions. In later times, Djoser was remembered as a wise ruler. Medieval sources described his tomb in Saqqara and depicted him as a legendary figure. Alongside other ancient Egyptian rulers, Djoser's step pyramid is an architectural wonder made of limestone. Beneath it lies a complex network of corridors and chambers, including a burial chamber accessible through a 28-meter shaft. Djoser's statue, found in a sealed chamber, allowed him to observe rituals performed outside. The pyramid complex, Djoser's funerary site, was the first entirely stone-built architectural project. It featured multiple courts, including the Great South Court and the Hebset North Court, with Djoser's step pyramid at its center. Number 1. Cleopatra VII, 69 BC to 30 BC. Cleopatra VII, Thea Philopator, born around 70 or 69 BC, was the last queen of Egypt from 51 to 30 BC. She was part of a family called the Ptolemies, who ruled Egypt after the time of Alexander the Great. Cleopatra was different from other rulers because she was the only one who learned to speak the language of the Egyptians. When Cleopatra was young, her family faced many problems. They had to leave Egypt for Rome because of a fight over who should be in charge. After her father died, Cleopatra and her brother ruled together, but they didn't get along, and a big fight broke out between them. During this time, Cleopatra got involved with the powerful Romans, first with Julius Caesar and later with Mark Antony. She even had children with them. But her relationship with the Romans caused trouble, and she ended up in a big fight with another Roman leader named Octavian. The Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt were crowned in Memphis by the Egyptian high priest of Ptah, but they mainly lived in the Greek city of Alexandria, founded by Alexander the Great. They spoke Greek and ruled Egypt as Greek monarchs, not bothering to learn the native Egyptian language. However, Cleopatra was different. By the time she was an adult, she could speak many languages, including Egyptian, making her the first Ptolemaic ruler to do so. According to Greek philosopher Plutarch, Cleopatra could also speak other languages like Ethiopian, Hebrew, Arabic, and even Latin, though she mostly conversed in Greek with her Roman peers. Her ability to speak various languages reflected her ambition to regain territories in North Africa and West Asia that once belonged to the Ptolemaic kingdom. Even before Cleopatra's time, Rome had been involved in Egyptian affairs. When Ptolemy IX Phalatheros died, his daughter, Berenice III, took over, but her reign didn't sit well with everyone. She eventually agreed to rule jointly with her cousin and stepson Ptolemy XI Alexander II, a decision influenced by the Roman dictator Sulla. In 65 BC, the Roman senator Marcus Licinius Crassus suggested to the Roman Senate that Rome should take over Egypt, but his idea was rejected. Ptolemy XII, Egypt's ruler at the time, tried to prevent annexation by giving gifts to influential Roman politicians like Pompey and later Caesar. However, his lavish spending left him in debt, and he had to borrow money from a Roman banker. Eventually, Ptolemy XII was forced into exile, traveling to various places, including Rome, with his daughter Cleopatra, who was around 11 years old at the time. While in Rome, Ptolemy ordered the assassination of Egyptian envoys who opposed him, an act covered up by his Roman allies. Ptolemy XII's financial backers in Rome wanted to restore him to power. Pompey convinced Iulus Gabinius, the Roman governor of Syria, to invade Egypt and reinstate Ptolemy XII, offering a substantial sum of money for the task. Gabinius invaded Egypt in 55 BC, with Caesar's future ally Mark Antony serving under him. Cleopatra, then 14, likely accompanied this expedition, and it's said that Antony fell in love with her during this time. Gabinius faced legal consequences in Rome for his actions, but was later recalled by Caesar. Crassus took over as governor of Syria, but died in battle against the Parthians. Ptolemy XII had his opponents executed and installed a Roman garrison, the Gabiniani, to enforce his rule. Despite these challenges, Ptolemy XII managed some achievements, such as appointing Cleopatra as his co-ruler and initiating construction projects. When Ptolemy XII died in 51 BC, Cleopatra faced a series of crises, including famine and internal strife. She also inherited her father's massive debt to Rome. Cleopatra's reign began with challenges, but she proved to be a resilient and capable ruler. Cleopatra's story has been told in many different ways over the years, and she is remembered as one of the most famous figures from ancient Egypt. And there you have it, the stories of 10 famous ancient Egyptian pharaohs who left an indelible mark on history. From the mighty Ramses II to the enigmatic Cleopatra VII, these rulers shaped the course of ancient Egypt and continue to fascinate us to this day. But the wonders of Egyptian history don't end here. Countless more tales are waiting to be uncovered, waiting to transport us back to a time of pyramids, pharaohs, and powerful dynasties. Which ancient Egyptian pharaoh do you find most fascinating, and why? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through the annals of ancient Egypt, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating historical content, and share it with others who love history. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your favorite pharaoh, or any other aspect of Egyptian history you would like to learn more about. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.